welcome to Razz Reviews. Today, I'm going to be reviewing The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 is a video game sequel to The Last of Us, a survival zombie apocalypse game that was released back in 2013 for PS3. It was developed by Naughty Dog, and it was probably one of the most popular games they've ever done. It's one of the most amazing games I've ever played, and now we have this sequel. And this has got to be the most divisive game I've ever played in my life. I mean, my God, the drama and the social media war surrounding this game is just unbelievable. Before the game came out, it was leaked online and people read the spoilers and they were saying that the story is horrible or the working conditions were horrible, and it's just drama. Completely like destroys the game before you even touch it. This game is very fitting to be released in 2020, the emotional roller coaster of years. In any case, I avoided the spoiler landmines online. I went and I got the game and I played it. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel at this point. I cannot tell you I hated it, but I also cannot tell you that I loved it. I am extremely conflicted about what happens in it and how it happens. I can't stand here and say that The Last of Us Part 2 is an amazing game, and I can't stand here and say it's a garbage game. It does some things amazingly well, but also has some really massive flaws that for me did not work. So I'm gonna dive in and try to explain how I felt. Before I start weighing in, I gotta give you guys a warning that this review is going to be spoiler full, because it's impossible to talk about this game without really discussing some heavy spoiler elements. So you have been warned, spoiler warning. Now, I was a huge fan of the first The Last of Us. I loved it because it was so story and narrative driven. The build-up of the relationship between Joel and Ellie is just one of the most amazing character developments I've ever seen in a game or any other medium. It's such an amazing script, and the climax in that game is probably one of my favorite climaxes in any game ever. I loved it, and looking back on it, it really didn't feel like a game. It felt more like a film, a beautiful film, and I'm into that. So I really loved it. The Last of Us 2 is also story driven, which I like, but it takes huge risks when it comes to the story, to some turning points, to some shocks and revelations that, to put it mildly, are kind of extreme. Now, there are three elephants in this room that I need to address. Elephant number one is the death of Joel. Elephant number two would be Abby and the switch to her perspective. And then elephant number three is the ending. So let's start with the first elephant, Joel's death. I honestly knew that he was gonna go. And it's not because I looked at the spoilers or anything, I didn't. It's just from that first teaser when Ellie is sitting playing the guitar and she's drenched in blood and Joel walks in and she's like, I'm gonna kill every last one of them. And I'm like, the only thing that will turn her into this kind of rage monster is if something happens to Joel, probably he gets killed. All of this gloom and doom does not bode well for my dear Joel. And to be honest, when that scene took place, it was heartbreaking. It was not fun to watch. It was really gut-wrenching, but I didn't have a problem with it as a concept. I didn't have a problem with Joel dying because it made sense. You need that kind of motivation to set Ellie on her story. And also, Joel's character arc is completed in the first game, which is why I felt, and other people as well, like The Last of Us did not need a sequel because he was the protagonist and his story was told and his arc was completed with his final decision. And with him dying, we're supposed to get Ellie's story. But did we? As I was playing the first half of the game, I was really enjoying it. And I was like, what is people's problem? This is amazing. The storyline is fine. I did not have a problem with the LGBTQ element at all. It was not in your face or overdone. The post-apocalyptic world has a lot of survivors in it. They're all people, and people come in different shapes, sizes, and sexual orientations. Like, you can't pick and choose what type of people survive the apocalypse, and you can't just pretend they don't exist. So get over it. So early on, I was having a great time. The visual design of this game is just so stunning. It's so beautiful. The graphics are insane. I think this is probably the best graphics we'll see from this generation before PS5. The world and the world design is one of the coolest things about the Last of Us series. It's seeing those abandoned buildings and post-apocalyptic locations, just so much detail in it. It's absolutely incredible. It's art. The gameplay also was pretty good. I like the game mechanics. There are some changes from the first one, and I like those changes. There are things in here that I actually enjoyed more than the first game, especially elements in the stealth. I really liked how you can be like prone underground and not be detected. I like that she had a shiv all the time, didn't have to make a shiv every 5 minutes. The zombies were scary. I get really scared, and there were some terrifying moments in this game, especially those goddamn creepy crawlies. Forgot what they were. I think they were called stalkers or something. My God, that's a nightmare. And I don't like it when they just like run across the camera suddenly. It was just so jumpy. I was really terrified. So everything was fine and dandy until we reach the halfway point and we get that big climactic scene at the theater, and then we switch into Abby's perspective. My God, that moment was such a whiplash that it was like, what? You went from like such a big culmination and excitement and drama and tension, and then suddenly flashback into Abby, and she's young. We find out that her dad was the doctor that Joel killed. Awesome revelation, no problems there. But then we're in the headquarters of the WLF, and it's like, what's going on? And honestly, I was really rushing through a lot of those bits in the beginning, thinking that it's just a flashback and I want to get back to the theater. I want to go back to the theater. What's going to happen in the theater? And then little by little, it started to dawn on me that I'm not going back to the theater anytime soon, am I? Oh my God. So I actually went and I asked a friend of mine who's played the game, like, how long am I going to be in this Abby flashback? He's like, it's not a flashback. You're going to be Abby for the next 10 to 12 hours. And I'm like, what? 10 hours of this? 10? Why would you do this? Okay, you want to switch perspective and show us the villain's backstory so that we understand her and we understand that cycle of revenge is destructive, blah, blah, blah. Okay, thematically, it's there. We did not need to be in Abby's shoes for 10 hours. We did not need to be away from our protagonist for 10 hours. And the game just goes into this screeching halt. It goes from ultra uber intense and exciting to so slow. And it didn't help that it was such a slow intro to Abby's story when we're like walking around aimlessly with giant narrative blue balls, getting a new mission and a quest, and it's like, what? This flip in perspective, it's the biggest risk that the developers took, and it heavily affects the game, the story, the structure, and the pacing. Now, does this mean that this cannot work? I don't know. For some people, it did, and it probably can work for you. It didn't work for me. It felt like such a weird structural choice, and it's such a reset. Especially as a gamer, I've been spending so many hours building Ellie's character, building her talent tree, collecting inventory, and then suddenly I go back to zero and it's like everything I've collected kind of didn't matter, and I didn't know when it would matter again. Like, it just felt so aimless, and it really destroys the pacing and nukes the story flow. It just stops it smack dab in the middle and we're gonna go back. And then we replay the 3 days again. It was so tedious and daunting. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for this to be over. We start getting introduced to the people that Ellie had previously killed. They have backstories. Congratulations. All right, I get it. But you know, just getting to know them a little bit is enough for me to feel remorse or feel connected to the fact that I killed them in cold blood earlier. But I don't need to be so invested in their story and their love triangles and their drama. I don't care, and I honestly couldn't get invested in them emotionally because I knew they would die. It's like a prequel, you know, which is why I don't like prequels most of the time. It's because you're showing me somebody whose ending I already know. It also doesn't help that Abby herself is not a compelling character to me. People had a problem with her physicality or the fact that she's buff. I didn't have a problem with that. As a matter of fact, I enjoyed the physicality of her. I enjoyed how different it was from Ellie, and it felt closer to playing Joel in The Last of Us 1. And I like that. That was cool. And I don't have a problem with muscular women. That's stupid. Muscular women exist again. The apocalypse has different shapes and colors and sizes and versions of human beings. Get over it. But I didn't like her personality. There wasn't anything about her that was compelling, you know? Joel was a broken person. When we met him, we go through his trauma and we are just shocked. The death of his daughter in the first 10 minutes of The Last of Us is a brilliant opener, and it really gives us this broken man, and we immediately love him and sympathize for him in just a few minutes. Abby's tragedy, we already know. Not only do we already know, we took part in it, and a lot of us, maybe not all of us, felt like that was the right thing to do. The game kind of tries to show it off as if what he did was wrong. Was it? If I was in Joel's shoes, to be honest with you, I'd do the same. Because there wasn't a guarantee that Ellie was gonna be a cure, so she was just gonna die, and he loved her, and his connection with her was 100% clear, and made sense, and emotional, and I loved it. So I didn't want her to die. Also, the Fireflies were a group, a violent group, you know, they weren't like angels. Do you really think that in the post-apocalyptic world, a militarized group is going to get its hands on a cure and they're just gonna share it with the world and save humanity, and they're not gonna keep it to themselves and use it as a weapon and use it as leverage to get more power? Really? And the first game was constantly teaching us that humans were actually worse than the zombies we were fighting over and over again. So you want me to give them Ellie's life so they can become more powerful? I never felt that way. I never felt like it was, I mean, was it questionable? Was it a moral dilemma? Yeah, but I, the player, made that decision and I didn't feel bad about it, you know? So when her dad dies, yeah, that's sad, but it's not something that I experienced firsthand. I experienced something that I've already done and I've already seen. So it doesn't have the same impact as the death of Joel's daughter. So I'm not gonna love Abby the same way I love Joel. That just doesn't work. It really doesn't help that Abby's personality is bleh. Like when we meet Joel, he has a goal. When we meet Ellie, she has a goal. They both have a want and a need. I didn't know what Abby wanted before, you know, she started wanting things. It took a while for her to want things. And her story only became interesting after she met Lev and the Seraphites. And then her story started becoming a little interesting because she started having a want and a need. She started having an objective. And her personality and her choices started to sort of come to light, but not much and very late in the game. That's what it is. It's a structural problem. It's not really a problem with the story element itself. Switching to the villain was not a bad idea. It was actually a pretty cool idea. It's been done before. I mean, I remember it happening in like Solid Snake 2, but it's just the way that it was done. The execution of it really didn't work for me, especially because of the way it was structured. I can't tell you if it's right or wrong to do this switch. After a while, I started getting used to it and I started enjoying it a little bit more, but I was always just waiting to get back into the theater and get back to my protagonist. I really felt that way. I never felt comfortable in those shoes ever, but I understood the thematic elements of it. I understood that there are no heroes and no villains in the post-apocalyptic world. Ellie's not a hero, neither is Abby. I get that. And everybody has a backstory, and my enemy has a backstory, my enemy's enemy has a backstory. But you know, the thing is, backstory is not story. This is something that we've been taught when we were learning basic script writing. You can't have the backstory be the actual story. There has to be an actual story happening. And for a while, there wasn't any. It was just Abby and her past trauma. And it's like, okay, but why am I here? It's not exciting or engaging. That's how I felt. To be honest with you, I wish we switched to Owen. Me personally. I actually thought he was a much more interesting character than Abby was. Yes, Abby was the daughter of the surgeon. Okay, but that does not make her interesting because that's her backstory. I thought Owen was much more interesting. He had an internal struggle and conflict the whole time. It didn't help that Abby didn't seem really that conflicted about what she did to Joel. When on the other hand, when Ellie tortured one of Abby's friends and she goes back to that theater and she's absolutely devastated, that was really powerful. She couldn't believe what she had done. But Abby never really felt conflicted. Later she says, I have to help them because I have to, hinting that she's guilty, so she's trying to appease her guilt and be a better person. Okay, it's not strong. It's not that powerful of a moment of regret and inner conflict. Owen's moment of talking about the man that he killed and he was old and he just looked at him and he was tired and he was ready to die, and that like broke his heart and made him realize, what am I doing? I thought that was really beautiful. It made me like Owen. He's a cool guy. Too bad he dies in an hour. So the second half of the game was uncomfortable and annoying. There are powerful moments in there though. Fighting that amalgamation of zombies in Ground Zero was one of the most terrifying things I had to do. I screamed non-stop the whole time. I was just like, that was cool and scary. I really liked fighting the Seraphites actually because they're actually smart AI. It was very tough getting around them. I like how they trap and flank and do that stuff. So that section had its moments, but overall, I just couldn't get invested. This brings me to the third and final elephant in the room, which is the ending. But first I have to address the fact that there were two endings to this game. Again, the structure of this game is such a mess for me that at some point when we go back to the theater and the two of them face off, I'm fighting as Abby against Ellie. I really didn't want to do that. I found out who Abby is and now I have to fight her. At this point, I was sort of invested in her story, but still, I I'd never ever want to fight Ellie. And it felt like they were shoving this character down my throat. It really didn't help me like her. It's bad enough that we spent the last 10 hours getting completely manipulated into liking Abby. She saves a zebra with her dad. She's suddenly nice. Dude, she tortured a guy with a golf bat. She didn't just kill Joel. She killed him in a very horrific way. What the hell? But no, she's a good person. She's nice. She's the best person now. Suddenly she pets dogs. You're gonna like her. You're gonna like her. You hear me? I didn't. I don't want to be her killing Ellie. I don't. Stop making me do this. Stop. I don't want it. She doesn't kill Ellie. I didn't understand why she didn't kill Ellie. And then she leaves. That's it. And then we get what felt like a prologue. And then suddenly, inexplicably, she does it again. She goes after Abby again. Man, that part was really tedious. And tedious is a feeling that I had throughout this game. It felt always like I'm being forced to do things, A, I don't want to do, B, things that I've already done, sort of, with no results. And then we go again, and we have to go through a new group in a new city. It just felt tacked on, guys. That bit made the game feel long. I did not feel this way about the first Last of Us. I felt like it ended like that. This, I really felt the time, especially in that third bit. And then she saves her, and I'm like, that's cool. She felt bad for her. Instead of trying to kill her, she saves her. But then she tracks back and fights her for no reason, and then she fights her, and then before she kills her, she doesn't. My God, the flip-flopping of this game was just tiring. Why did they make us feel like everything is over, then restart things again, and then end it in the same way that it just ended a little bit ago? I get the message behind it. Revenge is bad. The cycle of violence never ends. There are no heroes and no villains and blah, blah, blah. I got it. But the execution of these very beautiful messages did not work. It was clunky and messy. Now, a few days later, after I finished this game, I've been thinking about it nonstop. I can't stand here and say this is a trash game. It isn't. It has beautiful gameplay. It has amazing moments. It's a powerful game. It's just that the structure of it didn't land with me. I was very uncomfortable being pushed and pulled in different directions in a way that did not feel smooth and did not really serve the story for me to receive it. Felt like the story was sort of like thrown at me, like, here, take it. This is what happens. But gaming is different. It's a very personal, isolated experience. A lot of people can like this game, and I can't tell them they're wrong, because it all depends on whether or not you enjoyed playing Abby. If you, for some reason, liked the change, fine. And I can understand why people would like it, because part of their manipulation to make us like Abby, they made her story, especially her world, a lot more interesting than Ellie's. Ellie's world was a high school drama. I love this girl, she loves another guy, she's pregnant, oh my God, my daddy doesn't understand. She didn't really explore the factions and the politics of the post-apocalyptic world much, while Abby did, which made that part of the story, the world that Abby was functioning in, actually more interesting to me, and I enjoyed that. But I'm not happy that I had to experience those cool things like the Seraphites through Abby. If you liked Abby and you liked the Switch, then you will enjoy this game. If that Switch did not sit right with you, you would probably not enjoy this game. But it's not a garbage game, and it's also not a masterpiece. It's a game that is very ambitious, that takes huge risks with story and structure, and it really depends on you whether you're gonna like it or not. So you should definitely play it. I'm more focusing on the things that I didn't like, but I actually did enjoy a good chunk of the time I spent playing this game. I would have wanted to spend time with Abby before she kills Joel. I would also definitely welcome intercutting between Joel and Ellie. Instead of having their interaction be in flashback, have their interaction be the first half, while in the other one we're going with Abby with her search for Joel. Maybe she meets them, maybe they become friends, and then we find out about the plot to revenge, whatever. There's a lot that could have been done. The same story would still apply. The same thematic, powerful moments will still be there. It would have been much better to swallow. So overall, this is a powerful, ambitious, dark game that you need to survive not only as a character, but as a player as well. So definitely check it out. I personally wished it was much better than this. I had a lot of problems with it. There was a lot of flaws that didn't work for me, but overall, I still appreciate a lot of the good things it does. So I'm gonna give The Last of Us Part 2 a 7 out of 10. So, have you played The Last of Us Part 2? Let me know in the comment section. Try to keep it as a civil discussion. And also let me know what else you'd like me to review for you next. See ya!